Alright guys, today we're going to be inspecting a K-Series head. This is a PRB casting. So this one came in for just inspection and a surface and change the valve seals. So just going to make sure this is okay to go back on the block. First, we're going to get our little tray. All of our bits in it. So, start taking it apart here. So you got this little wheelie here. You hit it on the back side, breaks the keepers loose, and it has a little magnet there that grabs them all up. Just a little like that. Just like that, pop up. So when you're doing this, you want to be careful you're not just really coming down on it hard, because basically you're just going to push the valve into your nice table and bend it. Sometimes it might take a couple to pop it loose, but that's okay. As long as it comes off. Here and grab a couple of them, pop down. So we're going to pop these out and keep them in order. That way when we go to put it back, because I don't think at this point that we're going to have to remachine seats. So it's nice to put the valves back where they came from. These, to be honest, you are not looking very good at all. Really a lot of carbon buildup on them. Some of them are white. The indicator could have gone clean. Oh yeah. And see here, this one you can actually see where the valves are cracking. Get it to focus here. So yeah, right there, you got little hairline cracks starting to come through. You can see it's a little bent even. So, gonna go ahead and say the exhaust side is not looking so good. What you can also see, what I'm showing you here, the guides are going to be pretty loose. I'll show you here. So, just take it off the stand and try it. So, if you look here, get it to focus. So see how part of the seat there is shiny? And then as you come around, you get a pointer. So you can really see it here on this end one. You can see here, I can get to focus. There we go. So you can see here how it's a little bit shiny. and as you come around the edge here, it really starts to get wide, and that's your seat contact patch. So that's where your valve is actually going to be touching the seat. So because we see it, you know, it's not uniform all the way around, that usually leads me to believe that the guides are pretty worn out, because that happens when the valve goes in and it's loose, like this one is here, and it starts to walk its way around. This is really exaggerated, but like this, and then it's going to hit the angle sideways and start peeling that material here in. So right off the bat, it's not looking so good for this guy. And that's kind of usually the way the stuff goes when it comes in here for just a surface. So I've actually gone ahead and removed one of the seals here so you can see. So because this goes over the valve stem, when you're doing your little wiggle test on the valve, that can actually influence it, because you're not getting a true feel for the valve in the guide itself. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this over really quick. Okay, so give this a wiggle check again. And you can see this is actually moving quite a bit. So we're going to check with our solid carbide pilots. So these are made by Newen. So if you can see the size there, that is the exact size over 4 decimal places that this is. So typically our 5.51 millimeter pilot is what we check the exhaust with. So, you know, on something stock that's seen some miles, it's a little worn out. If this feels pretty snug, normally it's gonna run alright. This one here, actually see we have a decent amount of movement. So this is on the looser side of things, so I mean it's borderline, but because it's rolled the valve seat angle so much, it's probably going to need a valve job. And the other thing, because this is an exact size, you can feel for the taper in the guide. So as we go down, it gets harder to push, and then kind of locks in there. So that's telling us that the inside of our guide is shaped like a V, like this. So if you imagine in here is your guide bore, towards the top here it's closer to spec as it gets tighter when the pilot comes in, and up here it's loose from the valve wanting to walk and orbit around on the seat. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off the intake valves and see what's going on there, and then take the seals off. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to use a little magnet tool here and pop these out. Sometimes you get lucky and they don't need very much persuasion at all. Sometimes you gotta give them a couple taps. Just keep working down the line. also made a mental note to keep our springs in the order they came out, in accordance with, I always put the front of the head, so to speak, on this side, and you'll notice that our exhaust springs have a little red paint on them, and of course the one I grabbed for the intake side, can't see it too well on camera, actually has the cool blue to help identify them, and just make a mental note that the red is on the exhaust because it's hot. Block escaped there. One more there. And there. So now we're gonna pop these off. Keep them in order, of course. Give it a quick little eyeball there. All look decent, but you can already tell, looking and feeling at these, that this thing's had kind of a hard life. The valves are cupped from being pulled through the seat, either a lot of RPM, floating, or a lot of two-step. So I'm going to show you guys a way to check if the valves have been cupped. Alright, so I learned this old-timer trick. So all you're going to do is take a new razor blade and set it up against the face here, and see how the light still shines through. That's because it's not a flat surface. It's tulipped from trying to pull through on the seat. Now, take a look at a new Super Tech. I'm going to do this one here, if I can hold it right. See, no light besides me shaking my hands, because they're ground straight and concentric. So now I know some of you guys might not be familiar with the terminology, and I've been saying that, you know, these are cupped or these are tulip. This one you can actually see on the side there. So the center of the valve face is pointed in like a V. So normally there'll be like a 45-degree angle, so this is your valve face, and that's what's going to contact the shiny part of the seat here. So those two 45s squish together and it makes a seal. On a cupped valve, you know, let's say this is your 45-degree angle, it looks more like this. So you'll have your low spot in the center, or wherever it's touching on the seat, and that's where the light's passing through when you have a razor blade. So imagine you have the razor blade here like this on each end of the valve face, and it's going to show you this area here where the light's coming through. Okay, so now that we've looked at the intake, the exhaust valves, the exhaust guys, we're going to go ahead and pull the seals off of this thing. So I use the seal puller from Goodson. It's worth every penny. A lot of guys have struggled pulling these off. This makes it a lot easier versus trying to sit there and struggle with 2 screwdrivers for save long. Just like that, we're almost halfway done. So, as you can tell, these are really sliding off pretty easy. And in my experience, that usually means that they are nearing the end of their life. They're just kind of burn up. These use a Viton material. So once it gets worn out, burns, it doesn't seal, and it's just like a plastic, but not quite a Teflon. All right. Use our magnets here and get valves to pop off if we're lucky. So I just use two, kind of pick it up out of there. I said valve seats, these are spring seats, obviously. The two little magnets aren't touching. I might have to use the big guy over here. So you just kind of take your magnets and just work it back and forth until you break the little stiction of the oil film that's under this thing. So you might go, Cole, why are we spending all this time and effort to look at this cylinder head that's supposed to be a quick little surface job? The car was already running, it just needed a surface, and I'm here at my machine shop trying to rob this guy, tell him everything's wrong and it's not going to work. Because the reality of the situation is, yes, it was running, but obviously not very well, and probably for not much longer. And you know, they bring this thing in here and they say, oh, well, you touched it last, you inspected it, and you told me it was good to go. And now let's say one of these terrible valves drops or breaks the head off. They're going to look at me because I was the last chef in the pot. I touched it last, it's my fault. Regardless, even if I tell them, hey, you know, you need to address these things, and they say, oh, I don't care, just service it and put it back together. Nope, don't do it, come pick up your parts. Because I've done that in the past, and then I'm always the bad guy. Hashtag BadGuys. Yes, these ones are fighting me a little bit because a little piece of the material on these, so it's actually, when they go on the guide itself, it has like a V-type groove, so it bites into the seal. So even if you just put these on, you forgot the spring seat, you got to pull it off, it's going to peel all that material away. And sometimes it leaves a little material on the guide itself, and it gets caught on the inner diameter until you work it through. So now we got this thing all the way apart. We're going to go back to our pilots and see what the intake guides look like. So genuinely, so this one here, I can get to focus on it. Nope, well I tried. Well anyway, this one's just slightly smaller, so the pilot we use for the exhaust guys is a 5.51 millimeter. This one is a 5.5. So it's just a hair smaller. Go through and slide and check all these, see how they feel. You know, these feel okay. With the new valve, they probably feel a little bit better since the new valve, the stem diameter is closer to our pilot than they've used worn out valves. So now we're going to go back to our exhaust pilot that's a little bit bigger. So that fits really nice and snug in there. Leading me to believe that the intakes are probably alright. Generally, what we see, the exhausts do have a looser spec from the factory, so those are the ones that typically go out of spec and get loose first. So now we're just gonna just one more wiggle test here. I'll probably move the camera, do this again so you guys can see it, see exactly what I'm talking about. So hit pause, I'll come around. Okay, so let's see here, this is our super worn out exhaust valve. I'm gonna go in there and see how much this wiggles about. So that's gonna be a no. Go to our intake side. This one's got a little play. It's probably right on the edge of being okay to run. Now we're gonna go with our new Super Tech valve. And so it's a lot tighter in there. Which means our valve stem area here, obviously you can just see looking at it, that this is worn down a measurable amount. So not only are they cupped and tulipped, but the stems are worn down. So what we could do, if we're going to have to replace the guides on this thing, Super Techs come undersized so that we can actually size them to spec with these, which is not ideal, but we'd be able to make it go down the road. But now we're going to test all of our valves here and see how round these are, if they're bent. That's going to let us know if we can actually recut the face of them here and the tips and kind of clean these up and reuse them. Okay, so here we have our valve concentricity gauge. So this is made by a company called Niway. And so what we're going to do is we're going to slide our valve here up against the stop so we get them all pretty close to the same area. Then we're going to move our gauge here, and that's actually going to contact on the valve face where it touches the seat. Get it in the right spot there. Alright, so we're all set up here, touching on our valve face there. Might even move that out of here. Yeah. And now we're gonna go ahead and set our 0 point for reference. And now we're just gonna spin our valve around here. So see there, this thing is pretty bent. Move the light so you can see it. So, you know, this thing's almost 10 thou at a round. Creep up on it, 9 thou, and we start going back. So that's gonna be unacceptable. We'll check another one. So that valve's no good, it's bent. Like this one here, get us up against the stop. Start 0 again. And this one's just about 1,000th. So that's going to be okay. You know, it's not perfectly straight, but it's about as close as you're going to get. Because I've actually seen new Faria valves out of the package be bent 2,000ths more than once. Now, grab a new SuperTech valve. I'm going to put this one in here. So this is right out of the package. I haven't done nothing with it yet. There's our reference. And you can see right there. Move it down just a thou so it's on exact 0. Spin it around and around and around. Doesn't move. That's why I go with SuperTech every time. Anytime the budget allows for it, I will go with new SuperTech valves. Because right out of the package, you know, I usually check a couple of them from each set. For Faria, I've had problems with it being bent out of round. Never an issue with SuperTech. They really make a nice product. So now, what we got left to do is tell our customer that he basically has a good casting. Which we're gonna assume because we haven't sandblasted this yet, but it's very rare that these crack in the chambers. So at a minimum, he's gonna need new exhaust guides and a couple valves, which we have here. But ideally, we change all the guides to a bronze set. SuperTech, of course, my favorite. And get a new set of valves and a new set of seals. And when you change your valve guides, the guide itself is what centers all the tooling. So, when you change the insert out here, you get it as close as you can when you put the new one in, but they do not line up exactly with the old ones. So remember I said your two angles here are going to squish together. When you change the guide there, it moves the center line, you know, just a hair another direction. Now your stuff's not going to line up. This is a really dramatic example, but it's going to make the stuff not seal. So we're going to have to recut the seats. But because the exhausts were so bad and peeling, that's something that was going to have to be done anyway. Alright, thanks for watching.